LSU, Louisiana Tech. We've got your preview and prediction. It's Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We are free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you sincerely for that. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Actually, it's here. So visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. We got a lot to dive into today as we preview LSU and Louisiana Tech. Brian Kelly met with reporters on Thursday after practice. I had the chance to visit one-on-one with Louisiana Tech head coach Sonny Cumbie on my radio show after further review. I'll let you hear a few of the things that Coach Cumbie had to say about his Bulldogs coming to Baton Rouge and the team as a whole. You'll hear all that coming up here in just a little bit. So thank you so much for being with us. But as Brian Kelly was asked about this Louisiana Tech team and playing in-state opponents, it was interesting because, as he pointed out, there are a lot of ties between LSU and Louisiana Tech and these two staffs.
You know, we have Tim Rattay, who's in the Hall of Fame, you know, on our staff at La Tech. Joe Sloan, obviously, coached there. Blake. So there's a lot of, you know, crossover here. There's a lot of respect for Sonny and the program that he has. So we see him, you know, in recruiting, and he's at our camps. And so, you know, from that perspective, I think there's, you know, a great allegiance to the in-state schools. But on Saturday, we want to whip them, and so they want to do the same, right? But I like, you know, tipping our cap and saying, you know what, if we're going to play, you know, a non-Power 4 conference, let's do it from a school in the state of Louisiana.
Now, I like disclosure what Brian Kelly said there, the way he said it. If we're going to play a non-Power 4, now if you're an everyday or shout out, you know my feeling on this. I never want to see games like this ever. And I have tremendous respect professionally and personally for Sonny Cumbie, and I want great things for all the schools in Louisiana. I don't root against any of the schools in the state. I want them all to do very well in their conferences and their leagues. But no one wants to see this. Nobody wants to see LSU Louisiana Tech. We were all very excited for LSU Clemson. Nobody's excited for this. I look forward to a day in college athletics in college football, where we see a full schedule of only Power 4 versus Power 4 games for everybody. But nobody's going to be the first to do that and put themselves at a competitive disadvantage. There has to be an equitable schedule across the board. If everybody is scheduling 9 league games and 3 Power 4 non-conference games, awesome, then you can do that. But no one's going to be the first to do it and put themselves at a competitive disadvantage until they change the system and how the access to the playoff is judged or voted on, because there's no sense in playing and challenging yourself to 3 Power 4 non-conference games, risking losses, and then having the committee punish you for it. I mean, Indiana is the case in point of the antithesis of that. They played one ranked team, lost, but they went 11-1, and they got in the playoff. So I understand it. But all that to say, if you're going to play these games, sure, play in-state schools, keep that revenue in the state of Louisiana, let it go to fund the athletic departments for the state schools. Again, I'm not for that. I don't want that to be the case. I don't want to ever see these games. My feeling is Tech and ULL and ULM and Nichols and Southern and Grambling and McNeese and Northwestern State and all of them, they should all fund themselves. Fundraise, live within your means. I think that's not just true for Louisiana schools, but for every G5 and FCS school. But if you're going to play these games, I'd rather you keep the money in state. So it's nice to see, and it happens on a rotational basis. Saturday will be only the 5th time in history that LSU and Louisiana Tech will have played. Interestingly, the first time ever that LSU and Tech played was in 2003. And LSU won that game 49-10. Of course, LSU won the national championship. They also played in 2007. LSU won 58-10. and LSU won the national championship. They also played in 2009. LSU won a close game 24-16, and then they played again in 2018, a year before LSU won its last national championship. LSU won that one 38-21. So LSU's 4-0 against Louisiana Tech in this series history. They'll play for the fifth time in their history on Saturday night with LSU as a gigantic favorite. Now, you also heard Brian Kelly mention the ties with these two schools. So Tim Rattay, who was born in Ohio, went to high school in Arizona, and went to community college in Arizona before transferring to Louisiana Tech in 1996, was an outstanding player at Tech. In his 3 seasons at Tech, he completed over 1,500 yard passes for 12,000, nearly 13,000 yards, as you heard Brian Kelly mention. He's in the Louisiana Tech Athletics Hall of Fame and still holds several NCAA records. And he did coach at Tech from 2013 through 2018. So he was the wide receivers coach and the quarterbacks coach at Louisiana Tech before spending a year with the Washington Redskins, then jumping back into college with Oklahoma State, now at LSU. Joe Sloan was at Louisiana Tech from 2014 through 2021 until Brian Kelly was hired at LSU and brought Sloan down from Tech. So Sloan and Rattay were assistants on the same staff there at Louisiana Tech under Skip Holtz. And then Blake Baker was at Louisiana Tech for just 1 season in 2014. But as we just mentioned, Tim Rattay and Joe Sloan were both on staff in 2014 at Louisiana Tech as well. So all 3 guys, Rattay, Sloan, and Baker, were all on staff together at Louisiana Tech. Sloan and Rattay overlapped longer, but Baker, just for that one, they were all 3 on the same staff in the 2014 season. So it's you have a lot of ties here, and I think a lot of mutual respect. The other thing Brian Kelly mentioned there, which I think is certainly worth noting, is the recruiting angle. It's not that LSU's ever recruiting against Louisiana Tech for prospects, but one of the things that LSU does is when they open up their prospect camps in the summer, they invite all the state school coaches to come work those camps. And it creates great synergies because, let's say hypothetically, there's a player at Louisiana Tech or ULL or ULM or wherever that's a really good player, enters the transfer portal. Well, you hope you have a good relationship to where you could funnel that player to LSU in the same way that a guy like a Bernard Gooden went from South Florida to LSU, AJ Halsey from Houston to LSU. Well, if Tech ends up in that situation where they have a player, you'd want them to be at LSU. So it's important to maintain those relationships. And similarly, there's a lot of players that come to LSU's prospect camps that aren't going to get LSU offers. Well, in inviting all those coaches to come work the camp, those coaches have an opportunity to scout and recruit those prospects at the LSU prospect camps that they may not otherwise get on campus at Tech or ULM or ULL or wherever it may be. So having those relationships, I think, is important. And that's probably paramount in this situation because the line in this game is 37.5, and LSU is going to blow the doors off of Louisiana Tech Saturday night in Tiger Stadium. Now, I did have a chance to visit with Tech head coach Sonny Cumbie, and you'll learn a little bit about his team when we continue here. It is Locked On LSU, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. It's almost the weekend, so it's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. So let's break it down. For LSU, Harold Perkins delivered in a big way. Of course, the big pressure at the end of the fourth quarter that ended the game. When the pressure was on, Harold Perkins came through with no hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, this performance throughout Harold Perkins' career, no fluke. Harold Perkins is on a streak. And just like Harold Perkins delivered for LSU, DoorDash delivers for your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday on your order. So stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18. Today's show is also brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. They follow what moves them every time they drive. And that's what makes Mazda stand out. They go beyond safety, style, and performance to deliver a driving experience that feels alive in every detail. You can feel it in the moment you get behind the wheel. The smooth handling, intuitive controls, and standard all-wheel drive in every crossover SUV. Whether it's a quick drive to practice or a weekend road trip, Mazda makes even everyday drives feel special. It's the small details that make the big plays, and just like there's more to every player, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Had a chance to visit with Louisiana Tech head coach Sonny Cumbie, who very candidly has always been very generous with his time and kind to come on my radio show. And so when I texted Coach, even in the middle of a busy game preparing for LSU, he was good enough to come on my radio show. We had a good conversation. And instead of just playing that conversation in its entirety, I figured let me give you a few tidbits from Sonny Cumbie on his team that I thought might be relevant. First and foremost, I do think it was important to recap their week 1 win. So Louisiana Tech opened the season against Southeastern Louisiana, of course, an FCS school, and Tech did win that game 24-0. It was a game where the defense was outstanding, but the offense under Tony Franklin really took a little while to get going.
Well, I was really impressed defensively how we played, picking up from where we left off last season. I felt really good about, our linebackers, safeties, and corners. I think the D-line was a little bit of a work in progress just in terms of the personnel. I think we have some good players there. It's just a matter of who's going to really assert themselves at that position. And so was proud of how they played defensively. We were able to have 3 takeaways, a scoop and score. And any time that you hold a team, to a shutout, it's a great effort and you're really proud of that. I think special teams, I was really pleased with how our guys played on special teams. I think our guys handled themselves really well in the return game. Dedrick Latulis did a great job, and really in the returns, whether he was able to hit, but also in the field position, he was able to save by fielding punts, and he did a great job of it. And, and then offensively, we got off to a really slow start on offense, really hit our rhythm, the end of the first half and then into the third quarter. We were able to play with some tempo and move the ball well. And it really got to really pick up there on offense. But, I think there's so many unknowns in the first game. I mean, gosh, you're dealing with so many new players with new coaches on each side. And then your part of you is like, you don't know who's showing up for them also, just because there is so much roster turnover for everyone. And so to be able to get your first win at home, and to get our guys in our season off on the right foot.
You heard him say there that the offense struggled a little bit in the early going. The way that game kind of played out for Tech, and they did get a defensive score, Drew Henderson got the scoring started with an 18-yard field goal. So they had a red zone possession and were unable to cash in the touchdown, but they got the 3. Then they had a 17-yard touchdown pass in the third quarter. Again, there was no scoring in the first quarter, only a few. So the halftime score was 3-0, Louisiana Tech. And then Tech scored 3 times in the third quarter, a 17-yard touchdown pass, a 2-yard run on a 7-play, 50-yard drive, and then the 80-yard fumble return capped off the scoring with about 5 minutes to go in the ball game. And Tech won the game 24-0. So the offense was a bit of a struggle to get going. In this game against an FCS opponent, Tech put up only 262 yards. Southeastern, the FCS opponent, put up 273. So Southeastern actually outgained Tech. Now, Tech had balance. They threw it for 130 and ran it for 132, but I don't think that's the kind of output that Sonny Cumbie was hoping for, and the challenge only ratchets up this week coming to Baton Rouge against LSU. Now, what you need to know is that Tony Franklin is the new offensive coordinator there at Louisiana Tech. So you might remember Tony Franklin from his time at Auburn. He spent 1 year there back in 2008, and it was a little bit of a disaster. He was at Troy in 2006, 2007. He's been all over. He spent some time at Kentucky in the late 90s under Hal Mumme. And he's bounced around. He was at Cal, Middle Tennessee, coached sprint football at Army a few years ago. And then this year now is the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach at Louisiana Tech. But what's interesting is that, remember, Sonny Cumbie was a quarterback under Mike Leach at Texas Tech. So Cumbie's background is the spread. He went spread, air raid, fire 50 times a game, passing the ball, all that stuff. Tony Franklin is going to run tempo, but it's more rooted in the running game. And this year, Sonny Cumbie handed over play calling duties to Tony Franklin, something for a guy that this has been his life, has been organizing, running, and calling offenses has got to be really difficult. And that's something I asked him about, giving up control of the offense. And he started with a joke.
Yeah, Matt, I spent a lot of time down on the offensive scout team, especially this week. I try to help those guys out. Anyway, no, it's good for me to do that though, and help those young quarterbacks and run those cards and do that. But no, it's Coach Franklin's done a phenomenal job here. Before, he has done a great job here during spring and fall camp, and it is a little bit different. Yeah, it is. The mindset is a little bit more run, a little bit more RPO, and there's still the base air raid concepts that are built into what we do on offense. But that part has been a little bit different. But I think part of it is there's clarity for the guys up front, in terms of what we want to do, and trying to create an offensive line that plays with physicality and moves people off the ball. And so some of that is a little bit different. And, but the thing I think I really like about Tony is his ability to adapt to the personnel. And, if we have a running quarterback, then that's going to be something what we do. If we've got a kid that can really throw it and take care of the ball and is explosive with his arm, then we're going to be able to do that. And so I think that he's well versed in all of it, but that is kind of at the core of what he wants to do.
Tech is going to try to run the football. Again, that's going to be a little bit of a change from what we've come to expect from Louisiana Tech in the past. Trey Kukuk is the quarterback. He's a JUCO transfer. On Saturday against Southeastern, Louisiana Tech threw the ball just 20 times. They ran it 33 times. So expect Tech to try to establish the run against LSU, which could mean maybe a little bit of a faster paced game Saturday night in Tiger Stadium. And one more from Sonny Cumbie. I did ask him about playing at LSU, just what the opportunity meant for this team and for the program as a whole to be able to play this game in Baton Rouge and Tiger Stadium.
For this team, it's an unbelievable opportunity. It's a challenge. They're excited about it. The obvious in terms of, LSU is just coming off of a dominant performance against a really good team. They're a great opponent really at every position, every side of the ball. But our kids, they're excited about it. There's going to be a lot of their families. They're going to be there. They grew up playing with a lot of these kids, whether it's through high school or, even, before that, they know these kids well and are friends with them. And so I think there's a large contingent of Louisiana Tech, fan base in Baton Rouge. And so it'll be good to be there in front of them. And I think our focus is the improvement from one week to the next. And we've got to find those areas that we didn't perform as well in, and we've got to get better. And that's what I think our kids have done, up to this point this week. We'll have a Fast Friday tomorrow and then an opportunity Saturday night to do it in front of just an incredible environment.
Sonny Cumbie, Louisiana Tech head coach. One player to keep an eye on in the red, white, and blue is former LSU Tiger Colby Fields. You might remember Fields from New Orleans, played his freshman year at the University of South Carolina, transferred to LSU. After his one season in Baton Rouge, he re-entered the portal, transferred to Tech, but that was at a point where the NCAA was not just giving blanket waivers on transfers, and there was not the automatic eligibility waiver. So Fields was not granted an immediate eligibility waiver and had to sit out his first year at Tech in 2023. So he sat out 2023. Last year in 2024, he was outstanding, led Louisiana Tech in tackles. This year, he's the preseason Conference USA Defensive Player of the Year. So former LSU Tiger Colby Fields wearing number 10. You'll see him Saturday night in Tiger Stadium. Just someone, a former Tiger, worth keeping an eye on, and certainly wish him well. So we're going to knock out our final break, come back, and I'm going to give you 3 things that I'm watching Saturday in Tiger Stadium with LSU and Louisiana Tech, and I'll give you a final score prediction. Don't you move. It's Locked On LSU, your team every day. Hey, LSU fans, are you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited time promo code FOOTBALL and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You could make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already needed. At first, I thought it was too good to be true, but it's totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or any gift card for Amazon and other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now by using my limited time promo code FOOTBALL for a limited time 25 cents per gallon bonus. That's promo code football. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Give you three things to keep an eye on Saturday night in Tiger Stadium with LSU and Louisiana Tech. First, and this is something Brian Kelly discussed when he met with reporters on Thursday, is the possibility to see something in Tiger Stadium we have quite literally never seen. Now, it is worth mentioning also that there will be a new voice of Tiger Stadium, like we told you a few weeks ago. LSU's made it official. Dixon McMakin is replacing Dan Bornay as the new voice of Tiger Stadium, which is a cool ushering in of a new era. A year ago, Bill Franquez filled in for Dan Bornay while he was on leave. With Dan Bornay retiring, they opened it up, and Dixon McMakin was hired. And so Saturday night, if you're in Tiger Stadium, Saturday night Tiger Stadium will have a little bit of a new feel, a new sound, to be sure. So that's just another thing worth keeping an eye on, maybe a bonus, what to watch. But you may also see another first Saturday night. You may see three brothers on the field at the same time. West, Witt, and Zach Weeks, all, of course, we know are on the same team. Now, we've seen three brothers on a team at once before, the Taylors. Brandon, Curtis, and Jiron Taylor all played together, but they weren't all on the field at the same time. And Brian Kelly said that's something you could see, if not Saturday, at some point this year.
When you have the third brother come in through the doors, your first thought is, okay, we got all three of them. Maybe there'll be an opportunity for all three of them to be on the field. I hope we get that opportunity, and if we do, we'll take advantage of it, because I think it's first of all, it'll be deserving, because they're all really good players. But we'll have to wait and see how that happens. But in answering your question, yeah, I've thought about it, and that'd be a first for me. Not that I'm looking for firsts in that sense, but that'd be pretty neat.
That would be pretty neat. And Zach Weeks most certainly is going to redshirt this year. Remember, he was a reclass and early enrollee. So Zach Weeks should be playing his senior year of high school, but he reclassified to join LSU now to play with his brother so they could all be on the same team together. If Zach Weeks redshirts, then effectively next year begins his clock 4 to play 4, and he's up with the rest of the guys that are his age. But remember, you can play 4 games and not burn your red shirt. So you're looking at your non-conference games. Well, Clemson wasn't going to be it. You've got this opportunity Saturday against Tech, a couple of weeks when LSU plays Southeastern, and then maybe at the end of the season when LSU plays against Western Kentucky. Those would be your chances. If Zach's going to be in the game, it's going to be a game where LSU has a big lead, which means you probably wouldn't want Witt and West in the game at that point. So you kind of ask the question, could you put Zach in a drive maybe somewhere in the first half or early third quarter so you could have those guys all on the field at the same time with the game maybe firmly in hand, but not so out of reach to where it wouldn't make sense to have Witt and West on the field at the same time. Anyway, just keep an eye. You could see, and Zach is wearing 35. We know Witt is 40, West is 33, and Zach is wearing 35. So if you see 40, 33, and 35 at the same time, you're witnessing history for LSU football. The number 2 thing that I'm going to keep an eye on Saturday is the possibility of a bounce back for a couple of players, and most notably Ashton Stamps and Chris Hilton. We've talked a lot about them this week, in particular Stamps, because Brian Kelly raved about PJ Woodland. And, when I asked him on Tuesday, he said he's going to play the guys that give him the best chance to win the game. And we know Monsoor Delane's outstanding. PJ Woodland, his versatility has been very beneficial. And DJ Pickett played 25 snaps and was targeted 1 time. He was awesome in his debut. So there just wasn't an opportunity for Ashton Stamps to get in the game. I believe firmly that Ashton Stamps is going to play a big role, a key role on this team defensively. He started all 13 games a year ago in his time in Baton Rouge. He's played in 24 games with 17 starts, and he's a guy that has tremendous experience, led the conference in pass breakups a year ago, and I think is going to have a big impact. It just Saturday wasn't his day. Same with Chris Hilton. Chris Hilton was outstanding in fall camp, and he's going to play a big role. That was a game on Saturday where the short intermediate passing game is what LSU had to utilize. Chris Hilton's more of a deep threat guy. Saturday could be an opportunity where you really see number 3 get involved in the passing game, and I'd love to see it. And then also another one is Harlan Berry. Berry got just 1 carry in the game on Saturday. And against Clemson, I would venture a guess that Harlan Berry's going to have more of an opportunity against Louisiana Tech to show off what he can do. And third and finally, the run game, because obviously we've talked about Tony Franklin and what he looks to do offensively, leading with the run. So let's see if LSU's run defense can stand up again. They held Clemson to 31 yards rushing. Can they do the same to a run-first Louisiana Tech team? Just a few things that I'll be watching on Saturday. Of course, when the game ends, we will give you a Locked on LSU post-game show. So very grateful to everybody who's here with us on the show every single day. And we will on Saturday evening, whenever the game goes final. I do have a live stream on my own personal YouTube channel, but after that, I'll get you a post-game reaction, immediate reaction to LSU and Louisiana Tech. So whether it's Saturday night or early Sunday morning, make sure you're here for that. We'll go through game flow, standout players, what our takeaways are. And then later in the day, Sunday, we'll let you hear what Brian Kelly had to say in his post-game press conference after the game. And then Monday, of course, will be our Pro Football Focus episode where we go through the PFF grades from LSU's game each week. So that's kind of how our weekends will shape up throughout the football season. So expect a show Saturday evening after the game, or watch it early or listen early Sunday morning if you'd prefer. You should have another episode Sunday, and then, of course, our Monday PFF grade. So that's our schedule all throughout football season. Okay, as we wind on down this one, it's another big moment on Locked On. College football fans, Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside 2-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. And of course, happy to be participating in that when LSU plays a big game, and they invite me to do so. So make sure you check out Locked On College Football on Fire TV. Okay, that's going to do it for us here on today's episode of Locked On LSU. If you're listening on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app, rate us, leave a review. YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video, and let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you every single day for Locked On LSU, your team every day.